How's it going, everybody? My name is LuckyBunz. In today's video, we're going to be covering Reshiram, Zekrom, Kyurem, and their respective fusion forms White Kyurem and Black Kyurem. This will include how good they are in the meta for both raids and PvP, along with how the fusion works and how you can get your hands on them in Pokemon Go. Timestamps are posted down below, so feel free to skip ahead to any of the sections that you're actually interested in. So first of all, let's go over how good Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem are by themselves before fusing. Reshiram with the legacy moveset Fusion Flare is going to be one of the best non-mega, non-shadow fire type attackers in the game. And not only that, it is miles above its competition. Now when it comes down to PvP for Reshiram, it's currently ranked at number 16 in the Open Master League right now. Next up, let's go over how good Zekrom is. So with the legacy moveset Fusion Bolt, this is currently the best non-shadow electro type attacker in the game, and it's also going to be ranked at number 11 right now in the Open Master League. What's actually really interesting too is that Wild Charge is going to be the preferred moveset to go with in the Open Master League opposed to Fusion Bolt. Although that being said, I wouldn't go ahead and remove Fusion Bolt on your Zekrom if you do actually have it, because if you wanted to get that moveset back, you would have to use an Elite TM. I don't think that's necessarily worth it given that Fusion Bolt isn't like a huge downgrade compared to Wild Charge and PvP. It's basically just a different playability style, like you would just use it as a nuke option with no self-debuff, unlike Wild Charge. But overall, Zekrom is going to be a great Pokemon to build for both the raid/gym meta as well as for PvP. Now finally, let's take a look at how good Kyurem is by itself before the fusion. So first of all, Kyurem doesn't have access to an Ice-type fast move, so it isn't going to be relevant in the raid/gym meta for that reason. But that said, it does actually rank at number 17 right now in the Open Master League. The best moveset that you want to go with is going to be Dragon Breath plus Glaciate and Dragon Claw. Now of course, I wouldn't really recommend using the standalone Kyurem since its fusion forms will be significantly better. Let's take a look at those right now, but first, let's go over how the fusion works and how much it's going to cost to actually do these fusions. So when you fuse together Kyurem with either Reshiram or Zekrom, the IVs are going to be determined based on Kyurem. This is pretty similar to how it works in the main series games, and it's also how it worked with Necrozma as well when it came down to those fusion Pokemon. This is honestly great news for anybody who didn't get good IV spreads on their Reshiram or Zekrom, and to be honest, even if you did get good IV spreads, you can also just use those as standalone fire or electric type attackers respectively, and then just fuse together one of your ones with bad IVs. Now in terms of the fusion cost, you're going to need 1000 Blaze Fusion Energy to fuse Kyurem together with Reshiram to get White Kyurem, and then you're going to need 1000 Volt Fusion Energy to fuse Kyurem together with Zekrom to get Black Kyurem. You're also going to need 30 Kyurem Candy and 30 Reshiram or Zekrom Candy depending on the fusion. Now in terms of how much energy you're going to be getting per raid battle, I would say it's going to be anywhere from 80 to 120. Those were the rates I was getting at the in-person Univitor this past weekend, so in total you'd probably need to do anywhere from 10 to 12 raids each just to get enough energy to actually fuse together one of these. And keep in mind, this is a lot of energy, and if you decide that you don't actually want to have these Pokemon fused, if you unfuse them, you're going to have to re-spend that energy once again, so be very certain that when you decide to fuse your Kyurem with your Reshiram or your Zekrom, it is going to be the right IV spread and everything is perfectly set up. Now finally, your Kyurem also needs to know the move Glaciate before fusing it together, otherwise it won't get access to its signature movesets Ice Burn or Freeze Shock respectively. If you accidentally fuse it together before making sure it has Glaciate and you have to unfuse it, Elite TM it to get Glaciate, and then refuse it, it is going to cost you another 1000 energy. Guys, it takes a long time to get that energy. Do not make this mistake. Like, this is a massive one I guarantee a ton of players are going to be making, but hopefully by watching this video you can actually avoid it. So we know the requirements to actually get the fusions for both White Kyurem and Black Kyurem, but which one is actually better? So first of all, let's take a look at how good White Kyurem is going to be. So once Kyurem is fused together with Reshiram, it will become White Kyurem and automatically turn Glaciate into Ice Burn. The optimal moveset you want to have for raid battles is going to be Ice Fang plus Ice Burn. It's actually pretty awesome that White Kyurem picked up the Ice-type fast move since regular Kyurem didn't have access to this. Not to mention, White Kyurem also has access to a double Dragon-type moveset, but honestly, it's not that good. Pokemon like Mega Rayquaza, Shadow Palkia Origin Form, and even Shadow Salamence are still going to be a much better option to go with in terms of Dragon types. That being said though, as an Ice-type attacker, this is going to be the best of the best by miles. Like, I am not even kidding when I say that, guys. Shadow Mamoswine was the top Ice-type attacker before this, and White Kyurem is about 12 points higher on the ER scale. For those unfamiliar, just 2 to 3 points on this power scale can be quite significant. 12 points is insane, like that is seriously insane. So White Kyurem is going to be the best Ice-type attacker in the game by a long shot. Now for PvP, White Kyurem also currently ranks at number 5 right now in the Open Master League. The optimal moveset here is going to be Ice Fang plus Ice Burn and Fusion Flare, so you can use this interchangeably for raids without having to TM anything, which is honestly awesome. Now if you end up getting the Hundo and you decide to max it out, White Kyurem is going to reach 5206 CP, which is going to be one of the highest CP Pokemon in the game that is a non-Mega. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. So White Kyurem is definitely going to be one of the best Ice-type attackers in the game by a mile, and then we also know it's going to be pretty good in PvP. But what about Black Kyurem? How good is this Pokemon? So when you fuse together Kyurem with Zekrom, it's going to become Black Kyurem and automatically turn Glaciate into the move Freeze Shock. Now, unlike White Kyurem, Black Kyurem is not going to have an Ice-type fast move, which is kind of unfortunate. That said though, this can still be used as a Dragon Slayer specifically, since it does have access to Dragon Tail. So in these situations, especially if you're going to be using party play, the damage is going to be insane, even better than White Kyurem. But again, this is specifically against other Dragon-type Pokemon, so when it comes down to it, you can use Black Kyurem as either a Dragon Slayer or a superpowered generalist attacker. For that reason though, I wouldn't recommend building multiple of these, but rather just focus your best IV spread on the one that you do want to build. And this next point I'm about to make is going to just reinforce that. So for PvP, Black Kyurem currently ranks at number 2 right now in the Open Master League, which does make it a little bit better than White Kyurem. The best moveset here is going to be Shadow Claw plus Freeze Shock and Fusion Bolt, so this is going to be slightly different than your raid moveset, but all you really need to do is just use one fast TM to change it. There isn't any other moveset for the fast move, so it's a pretty simple process. Now just like White Kyurem, if you do end up getting the hundo and you max it out, Black Kyurem is also going to reach 5,206 CP. Now I did kind of give this away a little bit, but I'm sure I'm going to get asked this question: are there fusion limits for these Pokemon? So there's not going to be any limit on how many Black or White Kyurem you guys can have in game, as long as you have the appropriate energy and the right Pokemon. So feel free to build as many White Kyurem as you want to if you want to have a stacked team of Ice type attackers. And to be honest, there isn't really like a good Mega Pokemon for Ice types in game currently, and I don't think there is ever really going to be one. So if you want to build 6, that would make the most sense. In most categories in Pokemon Go, you typically want to go with 5 plus the Mega. But as far as Ice types go, it just makes sense to go with 6 White Kyurem if you have the potential to actually make that many. Now when it comes down to Black Kyurem, once again, since it doesn't have access to an Ice type fast move, you can still use this as a Dragon Slayer in raids, but I think it's just better if you focus on fusing together your best IV spread, typically the hundo, so that you can use it in the Open Master League, and then you can also use it in raid/gyms, but for the most part, you're really just going to be using White Kyurem. Now I totally understand there's probably going to be a lot of players out there who don't have enough raid passes to actually get the energy on both of these, and you're probably just going to have to focus on one, and even then that might not be enough. But if you had to pick one over the other, which is the better fusion to go with right now? So honestly, when it comes down to it, I would have to say that White Kyurem makes the most sense because it's going to be a top Ice type attacker in the game. Like, it completely surpasses what was the previous best, being Shadow Mamoswine, and you can also use it in the Open Master League. It currently ranks at number 5, so even though it is slightly worse than Black Kyurem in the Master League right now, the fact that you can get usability in both scenarios, both raids as well as PvP, makes it the best in my opinion. Now of course you can definitely make a good argument against going with Black Kyurem over White Kyurem, because if you actually use party play bonuses, then the damage might actually be more than White Kyurem in many scenarios, but given that it doesn't have access to an Ice type fast move, I do think that it's going to limit its usability quite significantly compared to White Kyurem. But of course, Master League for both of them is going to be solid, so really when it comes down to it, it's just, do you want to get more use out of raids or less use out of raids? I'm going to go with more use out of raids, so White Kyurem definitely makes the most sense to me. Now of course, I would love to hear your own opinions in the comment section down below, especially because so many people are going to be undecided on which one is going to be better. They're going to look to the comment section to see what everyone else has to say, so please share your own feedback if you've already fused these together, or if you already have a plan on which one you want to fuse together. We aren't actually done yet though. We still have to go over the Black and White Kyurem adventure effects. So these are going to cost 5 Kyurem candy and 5,000 Stardust for every 10 minutes. So we talked about Ice Burn on White Kyurem and Freeze Shock on Black Kyurem, but what exactly do these adventure effects do? So first of all, let's go over Ice Burn on White Kyurem. Essentially, the target ring on Pokemon encounters is going to move slower, making it easier to land Excellent throws if you weren't already using the Circle Lock method. Honestly though, when it comes down to this adventure effect, I don't really think it's that good because of the Circle Lock method. Now for those of you unfamiliar with the Circle Lock method, this is honestly one of the best ways to consistently land Excellent throws on legendary Pokemon. Basically, you want to hold on the Pokeball to set the circle, wait for the attack animation, and then time your throw so that it lands right as that attack animation finishes, preventing it from attacking you once again, and also just from honestly moving around. Given that this adventure effect, it doesn't actually prevent the Pokemon from attacking you, it doesn't really help all that much, right? Like, you could use a Nana Berry. Nana Berries actually prevent the Pokemon from attacking, which is honestly really nice, so a combination of Ice Burn plus a Nana Berry could actually work out pretty well. And on top of that, the Iceberg Adventure effect also increases the catch rate of a Pokemon, including when you're using it with an auto catcher. So let's say, for example, you're out playing Pokemon Go and you have your Iceberg Adventure effect on and you have your auto catcher running. The Pokemon that you catch, even though they are going to be with regular Pokeballs, the catch rate is going to be increased. We don't exactly know how much the catch rate is going to be increased. I'm sure it was data mined somewhere, so if somebody could let us know in the comment section down below, that'd be much appreciated. But as far as making this video right now, I have no idea what the increased catch rate is going to be. We just know it's going to be improved. Now, what about Freeze Shock? Is this any better on Black Kyurem? Well, during Pokemon encounters, essentially this adventure effect is going to make the Pokemon unable to move, but it can still attack you. And when I say not move, that's essentially like moving left to right or up and down. Some Pokemon do move in these directions, and it's honestly really frustrating trying to catch them, even if you are using the Circle Lock method. So you can still use the Circle Lock method here, but it's going to be a much better throwing approach because you don't have to worry about it moving around. This is a big deal in my opinion, so definitely a plus over Iceburn. Now, similar to Iceburn though, this adventure effect is also going to increase the catch rate of a Pokemon, including when you are using an auto catcher, so both adventure effects do actually have that passive effect. I definitely think that bonus alone is going to be the main appeal to actually using these adventure effects, and increased catch rate is always going to be good. And yes, this will actually include Galarian birds as well, because they have a horrible catch rate. Now, I do also want to mention in Pokemon Go recently, I feel like legendary Pokemon have become more difficult to catch. Like this past weekend, catching Kyurem was a nightmare. I definitely think it was a bait and switch, like making the Pokemon more difficult to catch over this past weekend and probably for the foreseeable future, and then selling you the solution with these adventure effects. It's just a theory, but honestly, it's a pretty strong theory. Now, can you actually use more than one adventure effect at a time? And unfortunately, the answer is going to be no. So for example, if you were using Spatial Rend on Palkia Origin Form, you would not be able to use these as well at the same time. You would have to just use one or the other. That is a bit unfortunate because Palkia Origin Form and Dialga Origin Form honestly have really good adventure effects depending on what you're going for. And if you're using Roar of Time for your daily adventure incense, and let's say for example you encounter a Galarian bird, well, you can't actually use one of these adventure effects to increase your catch rate because you have Roar of Time active. So it's definitely a really tricky scenario, like which adventure effect is going to be the better one to use. I think moving forward, if I'm going to be using the daily adventure incense, I'm probably just going to use that until it gets down to the last minute. If I don't get a Galarian bird, I'll extend it with Roar of Time. But if I do, I'm definitely going to try and use either Freeze Shock or Iceburn to increase the catch rate, and hopefully I can actually catch one of these things without having to use a Master Ball. So when it comes down to it, are these adventure effects actually worth using? So the fact that they increase the catch rate on all Pokemon caught is definitely going to be the main appeal that I'm personally seeing. In terms of the better adventure effect, I do think that Freeze Shock is going to be preferred to prevent the Pokemon from moving side to side or up and down. Of course, let me know your own thoughts in the comment section down below, but that's pretty much going to wrap things up for this video. If you do want to check out the best Pokemon to power up besides White and Black Kyurem, then check out this video next.